I never thought my lakefront property would become the center of a legal battle that would upend my life. But that's exactly what happened when Patricia Miller, the newly appointed head of our homeowners association, decided that my dock and jet ski were somehow violating community guidelines that didn't exist. It was a crisp morning in April when I first noticed something was wrong. I had just finished my coffee and was heading down to the dock to check on my jet ski before the weekend. My name is Wade Fitzgerald, and I'd lived in Lakeview Shores, a quiet community on Lake Travis outside Austin, Texas, for nearly 7 years. I'd saved for years to afford this property, and the dock and jet ski were my pride and joy, my weekend escape from the stress of running my own IT consulting business. As I walked down the path toward the lake, I froze. My dock, my custom-built, properly permitted dock, was gone. And so was my jet ski. At first I thought I was hallucinating. How could an entire dock just disappear? But it wasn't there, just empty water where my property should have been. I ran back to the house and called the police immediately. Officer Ramirez arrived about 20 minutes later, and I led him down to the water's edge. "So you're saying your entire dock and a jet ski were here yesterday?" he asked, looking skeptical as he wrote in his notebook. "Yes, absolutely. I was out on the jet ski yesterday evening around 6. Everything was fine when I secured it for the night. Any security cameras?" he asked. I shook my head, not pointing at the dock. I never thought I'd need them. "Any neighbors see anything?" "I haven't asked yet. I just discovered it missing and called you right away." Officer Ramirez nodded. "Well, I'll file the report for theft. Docks don't just walk away, and neither do jet skis. Someone had to have come with equipment to take them. We'll check if any other waterfront properties have reported similar thefts." I spent the next hour knocking on neighbors' doors, but no one had seen anything unusual. That's when Hannah Ogilvy, who lived 3 houses down, mentioned something that made my blood run cold. "You know, Wade, I saw Patricia Miller down by your property yesterday evening with some men in a boat. I thought maybe you'd hired them for maintenance or something." Patricia Miller, the HOA president who had made it her mission to enforce every bylaw real or imagined since taking over 3 months ago. She'd already fined half the neighborhood for violations ranging from trash cans being visible from the street to unapproved mailbox colors. "What time was this?" I asked Hannah, trying to keep my voice level. "Around 7:30, I think. I was walking my dog along the shoreline path." I thanked Hannah and immediately headed for Patricia's house, a large 2-story at the end of our cul-de-sac. When she opened the door, her fake smile didn't reach her eyes. "Wade, what a surprise. What can I do for you?" she asked, her voice syrupy sweet. "You can tell me where my dock and jet ski are, Patricia," I said, cutting straight to the point. Her expression changed instantly. "Oh, those eyesores. They've been removed as per HOA policy. You received multiple notices about unapproved waterfront structures." "What notices?" "I never received anything. And my dock was fully permitted by the county and the lake authority." Patricia crossed her arms. "Well, our HOA bylaws supersede those permissions, and the board voted unanimously that your particular installation didn't meet our community standards. The notices were sent by email. Check your spam folder." I was dumbfounded. "You can't just take someone's property. That's theft." "It's not theft when it's enforcement of community guidelines," she said smugly. "The items are in storage. Once you pay the removal fees and fines, totaling $5,200, you can reclaim them, though they won't be going back in the water without proper HOA approval." I was shaking with anger. "This is illegal, Patricia. I'll be calling my lawyer," she laughed. "Go ahead. The HOA agreement you signed when you bought your house gives us this authority. Maybe next time you'll read the fine print." I stormed back to my house and immediately called my friend Victor Chen, a lawyer who specialized in property disputes. He agreed to meet me for lunch that same day. "This is crazy, Vic," I said as we sat at a local diner. "She literally stole my property in broad daylight and is holding it for ransom." Victor looked concerned as he reviewed the HOA documents I'd brought. "This is concerning, Wade. While HOAs do have enforcement powers, they can't simply confiscate personal property, especially something as substantial as a dock and watercraft. Did you check for these supposed notices? I nodded. Nothing in my email, not even in spam. And my dock was fully permitted by the county and the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department. Victor made some notes. Here's what we'll do. First, we'll send a demand letter requesting the immediate return of your property. Second, we need to get copies of the board meeting minutes where this decision was supposedly made. Third, we need to verify if their bylaws actually contain language about waterfront structures. I'm betting they don't, or it's so vague it wouldn't hold up. The demand letter did nothing. Patricia responded through the HOA's attorney claiming the removal was legal and that the fines were now increasing due to administrative costs, whatever that meant. The total had somehow jumped to $7,800. What made matters worse was that I couldn't use my lakefront, the main reason I'd bought the property. Summer was coming, and I was essentially landlocked despite owning waterfront property. Victor advised filing a civil lawsuit, but also suggested we look into whether this qualified as criminal theft. The value of the dock alone is over $30,000, plus the jet ski at around $15,000. That's grand theft by any measure, he pointed out. I returned to the police station with Victor and filed a more detailed report, emphasizing that this wasn't an HOA dispute but outright theft of property valued at over $45,000. This time, the case was assigned to Detective Morgan, who took it more seriously. I've seen HOAs overstep their bounds before, Detective Morgan said, but taking physical property of this value is unusual. We'll investigate this as a potential theft. While the police investigation began, Victor helped me file a lawsuit against both the HOA as an entity and Patricia Miller personally. We also filed for an emergency injunction to have my property returned immediately. The first court hearing was scheduled for May 15th, almost 3 weeks after the theft. In the meantime, I did some investigating of my own. I obtained the HOA meeting minutes from the past 6 months through another board member who had grown concerned about Patricia's increasing power plays. What I found was shocking. There had never been any vote about my dock or any other waterfront structures. In fact, the HOA bylaws had no specific regulations about docks at all, only a vague statement that all exterior structures must be approved by the Architectural Committee. My dock had existed for 5 years without issue, and I had documentation showing it was approved by the previous HOA board when I first installed it. When I showed this to Victor, he smiled. "This is good. She's overreached significantly, but I'm concerned about where your property actually is. If it's damaged, that adds another layer to this." That concern proved valid when I received an anonymous text message with photos of my dock components and jet ski sitting unprotected in an open storage yard, exposed to the elements. The message came from a concerned HOA member who wouldn't identify themselves, but claimed to be troubled by Patricia's actions. The day of our initial hearing arrived, and Patricia showed up with the HOA's attorney, a stern-looking man named Douglas Pearson. I was surprised when Judge Hernandez immediately showed skepticism toward their position. "Mr. Pearson, are you telling me that your client removed a permanent structure and a watercraft from private property without a court order?" the judge asked. "Your Honor, the HOA agreement gives the association broad enforcement powers," the judge cut him off. "I've reviewed your bylaws, and I see nothing that specifically authorizes the physical removal of property, especially of this value. Did you obtain a court order?" "No, Your Honor, and did you provide proper notice to Mr. Fitzgerald? We sent emails. Do you have delivery confirmations? Read receipts?" Patricia leaned forward to whisper something, but the judge raised her hand. "I'm asking counsel, Miss Miller." Pearson hesitated. "We don't have confirmation of receipt, Your Honor." Judge Hernandez frowned. "I'm granting the emergency injunction. The HOA is ordered to return Mr. Fitzgerald's property to its original location within 48 hours at the HOA's expense. We'll schedule a full hearing to determine damages and whether this constitutes conversion or theft. I felt a wave of relief, but it was short-lived. Patricia approached me in the courthouse hallway afterward, her face flushed with anger. "This isn't over, Wade. You've made an enemy of the entire board now. The board that never voted on removing my dock, that board," I replied. She narrowed her eyes. "Things happen in executive session that don't make it into the minutes. Don't get comfortable." Victor pulled me away before I could respond. "Don't engage," he advised. "She's digging herself deeper." The victory was hollow when 48 hours passed and my dock and jet ski weren't returned. Victor filed a motion for contempt of court, and we were back before Judge Hernandez within days. "Your Honor," Pearson began, "my clients have been unable to return the items because the storage facility is claiming a lien for unpaid fees." Judge Hernandez was not impressed. "So your clients moved Mr. Fitzgerald's property without permission, placed it in storage without his knowledge, failed to pay the storage fees, and now claim they can't comply with a court order because of a situation they created. Is that what you're telling this court?" "We're working to resolve the situation, Your Honor." "Work faster," the judge replied. "The HOA will pay all storage fees, return the property within 72 hours, and I'm imposing a fine of $500 per day until compliance is achieved. And Mr. Pearson, I suggest you advise your clients about the seriousness of ignoring court orders." As we left the courtroom, Victor looked pleased. "This is going well for us. The judge clearly sees through their tactics." But 3 days later, when the dock components and jet ski were finally delivered to my property, I discovered they were damaged. The dock sections had been improperly handled, with broken connectors and warped boards. Worse, my jet ski had clearly been operated. The hour meter showed an additional 8 hours of use. There were new scratches on the hull, and the gas tank was nearly empty. I documented everything with photos and videos, then called Detective Morgan to update him on the situation. "This strengthens the criminal case," he said. "Not only did they take your property without permission, but they also used or allowed others to use your jet ski. That's beyond civil dispute territory." The case took an unexpected turn when the storage facility owner contacted me directly. "Mr. Fitzgerald, this is Larry Simmons from Lakeview Storage. I wanted to let you know that I have security footage of when your dock and jet ski were brought in. I thought you might want to see it, given what's going on." The footage was illuminating. It showed Patricia directing a team of men as they unloaded my property. But most damning was a clip from 2 days later showing Patricia's son, a college student named Tyler, taking my jet ski out of storage with several friends. Detective Morgan reviewed the footage and interviewed the storage facility owner. Within days, the district attorney's office decided to pursue charges against Patricia for theft and her son for unauthorized use of a motor vehicle. The criminal charges changed everything. Several HOA board members contacted me, distancing themselves from Patricia's actions and claiming they had no knowledge of her plan to remove my dock. One of them, Robert Turner, provided emails showing Patricia had acted unilaterally, forging board approvals and fabricating violations. "She's been doing this kind of thing since she took over," Robert explained. "Most of it has been smaller stuff, excessive fines, made-up violations, but this crossed a line. We've called an emergency meeting to remove her as president." The HOA held their meeting and Patricia was voted out unanimously. The new interim president, Maria Gonzalez, approached me with an offer to settle the civil suit. "The board wants to make this right," she said. "We're prepared to cover all damages, pay for professional reinstallation of your dock, and compensate you for lost use of your waterfront." Victor advised me to proceed cautiously. "Let's see what they're actually offering before we agree to anything." Their initial offer was $25,000, which barely covered the physical damages and reinstallation costs. Victor countered at $60,000, citing emotional distress, loss of enjoyment of property, and punitive damages for the willful and malicious nature of the actions. While negotiations continued, Patricia's criminal case proceeded. She was initially defiant, claiming she had acted within her authority as HOA president. But when faced with the evidence including the storage facility footage, the forged board approvals, and her son's use of my jet ski, her attorney began pushing for a plea deal. The most surprising development came when Tyler Miller, facing his own charges, turned on his mother. In exchange for reduced charges, he provided a statement claiming Patricia had explicitly told him he could have fun with that jet ski, because that troublemaker Wade won't be seeing it again anyway. With summer half over and my waterfront still unusable, I was growing increasingly frustrated. Victor suggested we consider a different approach. Wade, have you considered taking this to Maritime court? Your dock was on navigable waters and the jet ski is a watercraft. Maritime law might give us additional leverage, especially regarding the wrongful taking of a vessel. I hadn't considered this angle. Can we really do that? Victor nodded. Lake Travis is considered navigable waters under federal law. Your jet ski is a vessel under maritime definitions, and the dock is a maritime structure. I think we have a case for admiralty jurisdiction. He explained that maritime law could potentially provide stronger remedies and might expedite the process. We filed the additional claim in federal court under admiralty jurisdiction, which created immediate pressure on the HOA's insurance company. The insurance representative called Victor within days. This maritime claim changes things significantly, she admitted. Our policy has specific exclusions for willful acts, but the admiralty claim brings in federal regulations that complicate our position. We're prepared to offer $50,000 to resolve all claims. Victor pushed back. My client has lost an entire summer's use of his waterfront property. The damages exceed $50,000, not including punitive considerations given the deliberate nature of Miss Miller's actions. After further negotiation, they increased their offer to $75,000. Victor recommended accepting it. This is a good outcome, Wade. It fully compensates you for all damages and lost enjoyment, plus punitive damages. And it doesn't affect the criminal proceedings against Patricia. I agreed to the settlement. The check arrived a week later, and I immediately contracted with a marine construction company to rebuild my dock. They estimated it would take about 3 weeks. Meanwhile, Patricia's criminal case was approaching trial. The district attorney offered her a plea deal. 2 years in state prison, reduced from the potential 5 to 7 years she was facing if convicted at trial. Initially, she refused, still insisting she had acted within her authority. But when the evidence continued to mount, including testimony from other HOA board members about her pattern of abuse of power, she finally accepted the plea deal. In addition to the 2-year sentence, she would be required to pay restitution and would be barred from serving on any HOA board in the future. The day of her sentencing hearing, I attended out of curiosity more than vindictiveness. Patricia looked nothing like the imperious HOA president who had smugly told me she had every right to take my property. She seemed smaller somehow, deflated. When given the opportunity to address the court, she offered a half-hearted apology. I never meant for things to go this far, she said. I was just trying to maintain property values and community standards. Judge Wilson was unmoved. Miss Miller, what you did wasn't about community standards. It was about power and control. You stole valuable property, fabricated documents, and tried to cover it all up. Then you allowed your son to use Mr. Fitzgerald's personal property as if it were your own to distribute. That's not overzealous HOA enforcement, that's criminal behavior. He sentenced her to the agreed-upon 2 years, with the possibility of parole after 1 year. As she was led away, she glanced at me with a mix of anger and defeat. Outside the courthouse, several of my neighbors were waiting. Maria Gonzalez approached me first. "Wade, on behalf of the HOA, I want to formally apologize again. What Patricia did was inexcusable, and we've taken steps to ensure nothing like this ever happens again." Robert Turner added, "We've completely revised our bylaws to clarify enforcement procedures and establish checks and balances. No single board member will ever have that kind of unilateral power again. I appreciated their efforts, but the experience had left me wary. Thank you. I hope the new system works better for everyone." By late August, my new dock was finally installed better than the original, with improved materials and design. The settlement money had covered not only the dock replacement, but also allowed me to upgrade to a newer jet ski model since the original had been so badly misused. The first weekend after everything was installed, I invited some friends and neighbors over for a dock warming party. Even Hannah Ogilvy came by, bringing a bottle of champagne. "To new beginnings," she toasted, "and to standing up to HOA tyrants everywhere." Everyone laughed and raised their glasses. As I looked around at the gathering, my restored waterfront, my new jet ski bobbing gently in the water, my neighbors enjoying themselves, I felt a sense of closure. What had begun as a nightmare had ended with justice served, and my property not just restored but improved. Later that evening, as the party wound down, Victor pulled me aside. "You know, your case has made quite an impact. I've had 3 calls from other neighborhoods dealing with similar HOA overreach. Nothing quite as dramatic as your situation, but still serious abuses of power. Are you taking the cases?" I asked. 2 of them. "And I'm thinking of specializing more in HOA disputes. There's clearly a need." I nodded, looking out over the lake as the sun began to set. I never thought I'd become the poster child for fighting back against HOA abuse, but if my experience helps others stand up for themselves, I guess some good came from all this. In the months that followed, life at Lakeview Shores improved dramatically. The new HOA board operated with transparency and reasonableness. The revised bylaws were clear and fair, with proper procedures for violations that included adequate notice and right to appeal. I eventually joined the architectural committee, helping to ensure that homeowners' rights were respected while still maintaining community standards. My experience had given me insight into the delicate balance between individual property rights and community interests. Patricia served her time, and I heard through the neighborhood grapevine that she had moved to Arizona after her release, hopefully to a home without an HOA. Her son Tyler received probation and community service for his role in using my jet ski without permission. The settlement money beyond what I needed for repairs and replacements went into a fund I established to help homeowners fight unreasonable HOA actions. Working with Victor, we provided resources and sometimes legal representation to people who couldn't otherwise afford to challenge HOA overreach. 1 year after the dock theft, I hosted another gathering at my lakefront home. This time, it was a meeting of our newly formed Homeowners' Rights Coalition with representatives from several nearby communities. "What happened to me was extreme," I told the group assembled on my deck, "but HOA abuse happens in smaller ways every day. Excessive fines, selective enforcement, lack of transparency, these are issues in communities across Texas." Maria Gonzalez, who had remained HOA president, spoke next. "What we've learned is that HOAs can serve their purpose of maintaining community standards without becoming dictatorships. It's about balance and respect." As I watched the sunset over Lake Travis from my rebuilt dock, I reflected on the strange journey of the past year. I'd lost property, gone to court multiple times, seen justice served, and ultimately helped create positive change in my community. The water lapped gently against the dock posts, and my new jet ski bobbed securely in its lift. The $75,000 settlement had more than compensated for my losses, But the real value had been in standing up against abuse of power and helping ensure it wouldn't happen to others. My waterfront property was once again my sanctuary, and now it was also a symbol of resilience and justice. Weekend mornings returned to their former peace. I would wake early, make coffee, and head down to my dock to watch the sunrise over the lake. Sometimes I'd take the jet ski out for an early run, skimming across the water as the world awakened around me. These simple pleasures, temporarily stolen, now felt more precious than ever. One such morning, about 18 months after the original incident, I was surprised to see a familiar figure walking along the shoreline path. It was Hannah Ogilvy, who had been the first to tell me about seeing Patricia near my dock that fateful evening. "Morning, Wade," she called, waving as she approached. "Beautiful day on the water." I invited her to join me on the dock, and we sat watching the lake come to life as the sun rose higher. "You know," she said after a comfortable silence, "what happened with your dock and all the aftermath, it changed things around here for the better. People used to be afraid of the HOA. Now there's actual community governance." I nodded. "It was a high price to pay for that change, but I'm glad something good came out of it. The coalition you started is making waves too, no pun intended," she added. "I heard you helped that couple over in River Bend save their solar installation when their HOA tried to force them to remove it." "Victor did most of the legal work," I admitted. "I just provided moral support and some funding." Hannah smiled. "Still, you could have just taken your settlement, enjoyed your new dock, and moved on. Instead, you're helping others. That's admirable." Her comment made me reflect on how this ordeal had changed me. Before Patricia stole my dock, I had been relatively uninvolved in community matters. I paid my HOA dues, followed the rules, and kept to myself. Now I was actively engaged in protecting homeowners' rights across the region. Sometimes it takes experiencing injustice firsthand to understand how important it is to fight against it, I said. 2 years after the theft, I received an unexpected letter. It was from Patricia Miller, written from Arizona. I almost threw it away unopened, but curiosity got the better of me. "Mr. Fitzgerald," it began formally, "I am writing to offer a genuine apology for my actions regarding your dock and jet ski. My time in prison gave me ample opportunity to reflect on my behavior, not just toward you but throughout my tenure as HOA president. I abused my position and caused real harm. There is no excuse for what I did, and I am truly sorry. I do not expect forgiveness, but I wanted you to know that I recognize the wrong I did and the hurt I caused. Patricia Miller." I wasn't sure how to feel about her apology. Part of me was skeptical. Was this genuine remorse or part of some rehabilitation program requirement? But another part recognized that it took some courage to reach out, knowing I had every reason to reject her words. I never responded to the letter, but I didn't throw it away either. It served as a reminder that power, even on the small scale of a neighborhood HOA, could corrupt, and that standing up against such corruption was always worthwhile. That spring, our Homeowners' Rights Coalition achieved its first legislative victory when the Texas state legislature passed a bill limiting HOA foreclosure powers and requiring more transparency in enforcement actions. Victor and I had testified before the committee, sharing my story and others we had encountered through our advocacy work. As my life settled into a new normal, I found myself appreciating my lakefront home more than ever. Each time I walked down to my dock or took my jet ski out on the water, I felt a quiet satisfaction knowing that I had fought for my property rights and won. The HOA at Lakeview Shores continued to function smoothly under Maria's leadership. Meetings were well attended, decisions were made transparently, and violations were handled with fairness and clear communication. It was a model of how an HOA should operate, serving the community rather than ruling it. 3 years after the incident, Victor and I published a guidebook for homeowners dealing with HOA disputes. It outlined legal rights, suggested approaches to common problems, and included resources for further assistance. We distributed it free to homeowners across Texas and made it available online for anyone to download. From stealing your dock to inspiring a movement, Victor joked at the virtual launch event. Patricia Miller would be horrified to know the good that ultimately came from her actions. I laughed. I doubt she sees it that way, but yes, sometimes good things do come from bad situations. As I continued to enjoy my restored waterfront property in the years that followed, I often reflected on the strange journey that had brought me here. What had begun as a simple desire to enjoy my dock and jet ski had evolved into a passion for homeowners' rights and community governance. The $75,000 settlement had long since been spent on repairs, replacements, and funding our coalition's work. Patricia Miller had served her time and moved on. My neighbors and I had created a better community together. And my dock, my beautiful, sturdy, properly permitted dock, stood as a testament to standing firm against injustice, no matter how small or local it might seem. Every weekend, as I took my jet ski out on Lake Travis, feeling the spray of water and the warmth of the Texas sun, I was reminded that some things are worth fighting for: your property, your rights, and your community. And sometimes, when you stand up for yourself, you end up standing for something much bigger. The water beneath my dock would continue to rise and fall with the seasons. Storms would come and go. But the foundation was solid now, built on respect for individual rights balanced with true community values, not the arbitrary rules of a power-hungry HOA president, but the genuine collaboration of neighbors working together for the common good. And that, more than any monetary settlement or legal victory, was the true reward for fighting back against an HOA that had forgotten its purpose and overstepped its bounds. My dock and jet ski were back where they belonged, and so was the power in our community in the hands of the homeowners where it had always belonged.